on this week's Rockstar Superhero. Chris Hathcock is the creative mind and songwriter for the progressive metalers, the Reticent. Chris is also known as a Grammy-nominated music educator and is one of the most interesting and challenging humans I've ever met over my years as a performing artist. I've known Chris for a while now, and in that time I've fallen in love with his musical projects. I've also witnessed him suffer severe traumatic loss at an almost legendary scale. Like all of us, Chris has lost family members and friends over the years, including his father, and in whom Chris was incredibly close. His father's passing in the last year has resulted in Chris creating a new album project where he lays his life and feelings bare in the rarest of ways. You want to reach through his songs to help him heal, but weirdly enough, the very reason you want to do that is because his words and theme touch your aching heart as well. It's quite something to experience. So, this said, I can only warn you that today is not your typical light conversation about an upcoming band or a cautionary tale of celebrity. This is Chris Hathcock, uncompromisingly authentic and desperately seeking anything or anyone that will bring him out of the deep dark hole he's been trapped in as far back as he can remember. This is a conversation about mental illness, surviving it, and admitting that thriving within it doesn't just seem hopeless, but impossible. This is a conversation about the most ugly truths. This is a real deep dive with my friend, Chris Hathcock, on a very important Rockstar Superhero. Thanks for joining us.
Terrifying to believe I've been locked away. Must be some kind of mistake. Who would leave me here alone?
Just for the listeners, people that are checking this out, I want to let you know that I have a severe flu at the moment, which is why I'm dressed up this way, because I feel like absolute dog crap. So if I sound a little off kilter, or if I cough a lot, or if you wonder why I'm stuttering my words so much, it's because I'm having a really hard time. But my buddy Chris Hathcock is here, who happens to be somebody I treasure as a human, as a creative, as an influencer in my life, an incredible educator, a phenomenal songwriter. He can give a master class in poetry. The man can write like no other. And I am absolutely honored to have him here today. So without further ado, this is Chris Hathcock.
Well, thank you for having me back, man. It's a pleasure to speak with you as always.
Yeah. Well, dude, so the last time we talked, you mentioned this on social media this morning. Was a little over a year ago, and we both participated in a panel discussion on mental health and, mental illness, mental wellness, and the guest today. So this is not an effort to make you uncomfortable or throw you under the bus, but what I love about you, Chris, is your very transparent nature, this way about you that is willing to sort of throw yourself under the railroad tracks as often as possible, for better or worse. And I know the last year has been extraordinarily difficult for you, and that's to say the least. So I don't want to dwell on what's been painful, but I would like to talk a little bit today, at least sometime, whether it's now or in the future of this interview. I would like to talk about withstanding, because I look at you and I've known so many people that have been put through the ringer. I know so many people who have lost so many loved ones to awful deaths, suicide, you name it. pets, like you mentioned with Bane.
Mm.
So much pain and disorder in our lives. It's certainly hard to overcome. And as I was sort of preparing my mind for this chat today, I was thinking about the fact that, and I'm going to be very frank right now, I'm going to go right at the gullet. You've had a lot of opportunities to kill yourself.
That's true.
And yet there's something that stopped you. And so this isn't a question as much as it is a statement. But my thoughts are maybe how we deal with pain and suffering, of course, is relative to who we are and the lens we see life through. But maybe the reason we don't go that extra step is because we wonder how much good is left. What if we just held on a little while longer? What if we just withstood a little more to see, I don't want to say it, the payoff, but basically that, the payoff. How do we survive when it feels relentless? How do you survive? How have you gotten through the last year? I need to know.
Well, I have faltered many times and been very close to the edge more than once. At one point, some friends of mine, from some other bands, including, some of my bandmates, like my guitarist and extremely close friend James Nelson, Josh Ward from Voroth, and my friend Justin, who used to play in a million bands back in the day. They all kind of did almost an intervention, so to speak, to kind of track me down, and because they had sort of figured out that I had started to get a plan together,
mm-hmm.
and made a will and all those kinds of things, and so talking certainly helped. Just interaction with folks is one thing that has kept me around. You mentioned how is there more good to do, and that's certainly true. There is a wager in your mind. The suicidal mind is thinking, I have nothing left.
Mm-hmm.
All is ashes, nothing will ever be better. And if you can interrupt that with the thought of, okay, has every day actually been this bad?
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's been nonstop recently. So just thinking statistically, there is at least the chance that tomorrow won't be as bad as this is.
Mm-hmm.
There's statistically that there is a chance it will be worse.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of factors into it. And, for me, a sense of purpose and duty and things like that help me. I spend the majority of my time alone. I come home, it's just the animals. Most weekends, like recently I've been working more, and we're preparing for tour, and I've been working on albums, which we'll talk about later.
Right.
But prior to that, if I had a weekend, I'd just be sitting by myself. Everybody that's close to me kind of lives far away from me, just as a happenstance kind of thing. And so I couldn't depend on friends, loved ones. I mean, I'm 3 hours from the two family members I have left.
Mm-hmm.
So purpose, Depression robs us of a sense of purpose. Depression makes us feel we don't have one. Our existence is, at best, unnecessary. At worst, is a burden to others. And how can we fight back against that if we're just this cancer that just needs to be cut out? The cancer can grow. The cancer may not mean to cause the damage it causes.
Right.
But just through sheer, the fact of its existence means that it's hurting other things. And I think a lot of times that's how you feel when you've been pushed to that edge. So, doing little things is important. I know you're friends with me on social media, so many times I'll talk about like find a small victory today. I hope you will find a small victory today. And for a lot of people, that victory might be getting out of bed and taking a shower. That's huge. That might be, applying for a new job. That might be writing a poem, writing a song. It might be taking a walk. It might be working out. It might be whatever. Those little things, little victories can start to stack up and help give you enough to get to the next day. If someone were depressed to that point, if they're like me and they have major depressive disorder, and you're left with no joy, no anything, and all those kinds of things, it's just you get to that suicidal point because you want to escape. You don't want to be dead. It's not that you're excited about being dead. You just want the pain to stop. You just want what you're going through to end. And a lot of people don't necessarily understand that. And that's why you hear people who've never been through a lot. Oh, just cheer up, or they'll do the
platitudes.
Someone else has got it worse, and it's sort of, okay, so I guess I'm weak on top of all this other stuff.
Sure.
Now I'm definitely going to be all better now because you've told me you're confirming what a piece of garbage I am. Right.
Thanks for reducing my point of view. Yeah, absolutely.
And I know what they mean, but that's the thing is if you're in a transitory emotional state, you've lost something, you're grieving for it, whatever that might be, and we'll talk about grief later, or you've had an upset or something else that has happened. The emotion you're in is a reaction to the stimuli, right? And so changing the stimuli could change the reaction. That's where they're coming from. So they mean well because they've been sad, or maybe they've even kind of flirted with despair or something like that. But it might have been because, well, I lost my job, or someone I love died, or something else happened perhaps, and they needed something to snap them out of it. But what if it wasn't a thing around you? What if it was just you? And then you pair your this mind that feels. I always say it. I think I said it on the last podcast we had. I define depression as being inoculated against joy.
Right.
Imagine you're immune to it. Imagine it's I'm going to eat this and I know I like it, but it has no taste. I'm going to watch this television show. I know it makes me laugh, but it's doing nothing for me. I'm going to go see my friends. I know I love them, but I don't want to be near them. You feel the depression is not defined by sadness. It's defined by numbness and nothingness, blankness, gray, all that kind of stuff. So if that's the default, then you introduce all that horrible stimuli. So that's when let's introduce people dying that you love. Let's introduce the end of a marriage. Let's introduce the end of a job. Let's introduce, disease, hardship, whatever. It's very hard to just sort of snap out of that, because the person may be even thinking, well, take the stimuli away. I was still in a gray haze before this happened. Now this has happened on top of it. So that cheer up kind of thing doesn't really work. But what I do think works is For me, I should say for me. That's the first thing is anybody who says, here's how you cure depression,
Sure.
they're lying.
Yeah.
They're lying because everybody's depression is different.
Mhm.
Everybody's brain is different. And so there is no end all be all cure.
Right. It's their lens.
Yeah. And so for me, and I can only speak for me, seeing if I could make myself stronger is one thing that helps me. I've got a very, as a doctor once told me, I have an impressively low opinion of myself, as he put it. Because it's one of those things that you have those psychological exercises sometimes where they ask you to describe yourself with this other thing, and I would speak just emphatically negative about myself, but I'm also at the same time like this very inspirational, kind of motivational guy who I'll get you pumped up, man. I can make you want to take on the world. But then if you were to hear me talk about myself, you'd find out that I think I'm just this horrible thing. So strangely enough, the one thing that I think I was able to hang my hat on was I've been through a lot, and I've seen people die in front of me. I've lost a lot of things. I've had so much fall apart in my life. Like I said, I mean, my family's down to 2 people.
Yeah.
And when my mother's gone, it'll be my sister and her kids. But I mean, I see all of them twice a year, and I'm not close to my sister or anything like that. We at least got to the point where we don't have animosity, but
Sure.
like once
But you are distanced. Yeah.
once my mother goes, it's going to be, I feel like that distance is going to get even further. And it's sort of, that's it. And so the resilience, of being able to have gone through these things and somehow like had the gun right there and say, no, I'm just going to hold off. Let's do one more day. I'm going to take one more step. That's the only thing I guess I can say about myself. I worked out with a buddy of mine. His name's Doza. He plays drums in a band called Mega Colossus, and we were working out one day, and I'm not in good shape or anything like that. I wish I was. He's in like phenomenal shape. He needs to do his own work.
You're just fine, Chris. You just but keep going. Okay.
No, like I have. I love to lift weights and work out and all that kind of stuff, but I also love sugar cake and chips and all that greasy food. And I work so much that fast food is something like, if I don't get that, I won't have time to eat something, that kind of thing. So, but we were working out, and I was recovering from an injury. We were doing this intense stuff, and he was looking at me, and he said, why don't we do this? And he said, you know what, you have a lot of grit, and I feel like you will hurt yourself to finish this, because we said, all right, we're going to try to do this many of whatever, we're going to do this. And he said, I feel like you would injure yourself because the goal was set here, and you'll just hurt yourself, but you'll make the goal. And that is me. My friend, I have a friend named Lita, who I, would see like on the weekends or whatever. And every time I saw her, like over the past couple of months, like literally every time I saw her, I was somehow hurt from working out or overdoing this or overdoing that. So like, well, I'm having trouble with my arm today, or my leg, or my abs, or my this or that. And so it just became this thing where she just expected, when I come over, it's like, well, what'd you hurt now?
What's wrong now, Chris?
And again, like somebody followed my social media, it's just a trail of, I'll say, hey, I went back to working out. So they'll be like, all right, well, let's start the countdown until he injures himself, because it's happened so many times. But that's not a good thing. But the I guess grit is the thing that I could take some pride in that no matter how much it hurts, I'll finish the set or I'll finish the show. I played drums with this band called Zyal once, and I thought I had a fractured ankle, and I was drumming, so it's extreme
Yeah.
metal. So it was just like
Yeah.
that. And by the end of the show, like I put my foot up on the snare drum, and I was almost in tears. It was hurting so bad, and we were headlining, so we had this long set,
Right.
and they carried, like I had to be carried off the stage and carried to my car because I couldn't put any weight on that thing. But I played the entire show, and so this idea of I finish what I start, or
Yeah. All
you
costs.
know, all that kind of stuff. There's for whatever reason that resonates with me. I know there are a lot of people that doesn't resonate with. They'd hear those stories and just be like, "God, you sound like the dumbest guy ever." You know, stop. You know, if it hurts, stop doing it. Or you know, why would you? You know, you said you were going to do 10, but you started to hurt at 6. Why'd you do those last 4 and injure your arm or this idea thing? And it's this, you know, it's just some weird thing with me where that is something I can hold on to. And so that sense of duty, I said I would do it, so I'm going to do it, has kept me alive. And it's not, I've talked about exercise, that's my students. That's playing shows. That's
Right.
recording an album. If I said I was going to do something, that obligation will keep me going.
Yeah. This conversation is another example of that. I mean, you didn't have to come here and talk about the crap you suffered over the last year. You know what I mean? Who wants to rehash that? But I think, you know, I'm thinking about the people who I know are listening to this, or who will eventually watch. They're gonna find resonance in you. I think the most important thing. I mean, and I guess I'm minding my P's and Q's a bit here, Chris, because look, I don't want to rehash some things. And I also certainly don't want to tell you, like, you know, if you just did this, because again, everybody's take is different. I don't know really where I'm going with this outside of to say, you know, somebody said to me once, right after I met you, they I think they were reading one of your posts on my page, something like that. You know, I mean, like somehow, I don't know if your online persona is public or if it's private. I don't recall, but they were reading something that I had commented on. And the guy sent me a private message, and he was basically, you know, doing what everybody else does, right? Well, if this guy would just do this, you know what I mean? But it made me think, Chris, it made me think that this is how it applies to me. Sorry for all the rambles, but here's how it applies to me. The last 5 years, I never knew what depression was until about 5 years ago. And I remember standing in my shower one night and crying and just begging God, please kill me. Like, I just don't have the balls to do it myself. And I don't want to leave my wife and my kids behind, but this sucks so much. Like, my life sucks so much. And nothing's changed. It's still the same crap hole. I mean, my life is still a complete cluster to where I thought it would be, where I expected it to be. I mean, I don't want to ever go down the road of like, well, I deserve more, but I thought my life would be in a wildly different place than it is. I'm pretty, you know, dissatisfied with everything that's occurred. Like, why am I here if this is the shit I got to go through? Why am I here? What possible value do I have in bringing my shitty life to you? You know what I mean? But you know what? Here we are. And here's what I wanted to say about that. What if, and I know you've heard this too, but what if we just try to be around somebody? I mean, we're not made to be alone. We're just not. Whether you believe in God or not, or any of those things, doesn't change the fact that, man, when you come down to it, dude, you and I, we're friends because we have, you know, we had some shared experiences. We have, you know, we're both musicians. We've both seen amazing things, experienced amazing things, significant highs and super, super, super rough lows. And we've lost individuals, and we've lost friends to suicide. We've lost friends to accidents, and we've lost our favorite pets, and we've lost like every. And the one thing that's kept me around is when I came out of my bedroom and I forced myself to find somebody, not to tell how awful my life is, but to just serve them. And I think of you, and I think of that time you and I had a call half a year ago, where you got on the phone and you sounded like your world was at its end. And at the end, I remember saying to you, I can hear you smile. And our conversation today started the same.
Yeah.
Not an oh, woe is me. That's not what I mean. This is not. I'm not throwing you down at all. But just in a deeply somber place. And it's already become a little lighter because you and I recognize we care for each other. And even though we maybe can't save each other from our experiences, we can somehow, rise the tide a little bit for both of us just by hanging out for an hour.
Yeah. Well, no, that's true. And to piggyback on that, another one of those things that stays the hand is just, knowing you make some sort of difference. It short circuits some of your darker impulses.
Yeah.
And it's hard to hold on to, but I mean, that's why talking is helpful. If somebody talks to me in the grip of things, as you said, if you will get me talking about the things I believe, if you will get me to awaken that part of me that, is passionate, you'll hear my voice change. You'll see everything about me change. But it's this thing where, that's what depression does. It can sometimes block access to that, but then you talk to somebody and it just sort of can naturally come out. And, we think about like what should our lives be? And I mean, we're all very fortunate to be here regardless of anything, because we all won a cosmic lottery in my estimation, because again, going back to statistically, none of us should exist.
That's right.
It's
a verified impossibility that something should not come from nothing, but here we are.
And, there's, as we learn more and more about the universe and all these kinds of things, and I'm fascinated with things like cosmology and astrophysics and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
The things that, Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson, all these guys have talked about. I mean, like, we are all stardust. We are made of the universe and all these kinds of things. And it's not that we're all wonderful. We're all special. We're all this. We're just all very, very lucky. We're all improbable. We somehow defied the odds to exist. And, for better or for worse, we are here. And, a lot of people wrestle with meaning and why are we here and all those kinds of things. I do not have an answer for that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But I know the thing that makes me feel better about being here is helping people. Mm-hmm. And, part of the reason I'm very open to the point that I'm ridiculed, to the point that I lose friends, to the point that, it's probably not a good thing, but I will be very open about my struggles in a public fashion on social stuff, because as I said a year ago, like, I don't think that we should have this stigma. If you can say you have a migraine, why can you not say, boy, I don't feel like living today.
Right.
And these are two, these are states of being. These are common things. And, yet we still kind of sweep them under the rug and all that stuff. And I've had many people who've come to talk to me that didn't understand, and then somehow they experienced it, and then they said, you know what, I've changed my mind actually.
Yeah.
And they flat out said, like, I'll tell you something, I thought you were kind of just over dramatic, or you just cheer up or whatever, but
Yeah.
I couldn't get out of it. I just didn't understand. Like I just couldn't stop feeling this way, and nothing was working. And I would sit there and say, yes, that's the thing. But that's also why I talk. What we're doing now, what I do online, just talking is it's a way, even if there is no curative aspect to it, you're draining some venom from the wound. You're allowing the steam valve to vent so that it is not building up to that fever pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And what is your purpose? I mean, you've done things that I'll never do. You've created life. You've shaped lives in ways that I only get a peripheral, passing glance of. And, I work with kids, and I've stayed in touch with lots of students and things like that. And I love all my students, even the ones that tick me off. But I get them for a little bit of time.
Right.
And, I've been flattered enough to receive, letters or messages or emails from them that, I had this influence on their life or, what have you. And it's extremely humbling, and you feel honored to have touched someone like that. And that's great. But still, like they're a product of their parents and their families and their friends and all sorts of things. I'm a small cog in a big wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And, so do remember, as when those feelings come for you as well, like, you're a creator in a way some of us never will be.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's that influence, that opportunity is a big deal. It's a significant deal. And, we do spend a lot of times dissatisfied with our lives, and we look around and say, this is not what it should be, or what I imagined. For me, I guess I'm kind of doing what I wanted to do. I mean, it'd be great if I were on tour with Between the Buried and Me right now, or something like that.
Sure.
And just making music all the time. But like, this is part of the reason why, like, most people have never even heard of my band or me, is I am just completely uninterested in that side of things. I don't like promoting myself. Like, you're friends with me on social media. Like, how much do I talk about my band or plug it?
Very, very little. It's very frustrating too, because, I mean, I know a lot of very, very, celebrities. I know a lot of celebrities. And I think, like, how come, like, there's just certain bands you just can't believe that they're not so known. And, when John introduced us, I went and listened to your material because I hadn't heard it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't believe it wasn't everywhere. And it is a shock. But, when you have a glut of content, whatever the hell that means, all over the web, filling every crevice and cranny. And by the way, if it's longer than 10 seconds, nobody's watching it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I have thousands of people listen to my show, and I have like 100 people watch the show, because nobody wants to see a long form video. They just don't want to do it.
Yeah, I feel alone in that, because if something I follow on YouTube, if I say they put up something that's like an hour and a half or 2 hours long, like, I get so stoked. I'm like,
same here.
I love those kinds of, like, and same thing with podcasts. Like, if someone I was interested in and I see it was only like 52 minutes, I'm like, oh, man. But if I see it's like 3 hours, I'm like, oh man, they got into something. This is going to be good.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, the pendulum will swing, I believe, because I think that's kind of where we are right now, but that will shift. But I mean, to go back to what you're saying, I mean, I'm not going out of my way to not like promote my stuff.
Right.
I flat out don't know. Like, we should call John and ask him, like, when I first got with him, how I was flat out just like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to promote a record. I don't know how to tell, because I don't want to tell people about how great my stuff is. You're never going to hear me be like, all right, guys, you're not ready for what's coming. Like, that's never going to be me. And I've got plenty of friends who do that stuff, and it's fine. Like, but I'm not going to tell you about how great my stuff is, because I don't know that it's great. It's just what it needed to be for me. And I started making this music when I realized that music was the way to help me cope with all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and that kind of ties back to how else did I get out of all these suicidal things? Music is what saved me.
Yeah.
I tell students all the time, I tell audiences, I tell people, music saves lives. And we can talk about all the practical strategies and work out or do this or do that and all that stuff. That's certainly true. But when I would hear a song that would weep with me, that would help me. When I would write something that could say what I needed to say, that words were not sufficient for, that would help me. Mm-hmm. And music is the extension of the human experience. It's not superfluous. It's not a luxury. It is an extension of our communication.
Yeah.
And so the only thing I concern myself with is that utility of music, being able to use it for that reason. My music production students that I'm teaching right now, my beginners, they're doing a project where they got to do use some MIDI and some samples, record some stuff, all this kind of stuff. And most of my students are they don't like my music. It's not TikTok enough.
Too many notes.
It's too many notes. It's too weird.
Yeah.
But they respect it. They certainly respect it. But I mean, I didn't have to ask them. So. And many of them only find out about the Reticent if they just look me up and Google me, because I don't talk to them about it very much, But one thing I do is I give them like a project where it's okay, you learned how to use MIDI. We learned some chord progressions. So now I want you to build a song between this length and that length, but I want you to choose an emotion. Do you want it to be happy? Do you want it to be sad, angry, anxious? Right. Do you want it to be humorous? Do you want it to be this? But what are you feeling? What do you want to get through the song? Many of them, they don't quite understand. And so a lot of them will come and be like, oh, I just want something that, you could chill to, or this, and I'll say, okay, well, as a listener, how do you want me to feel when it's over? Mm-hmm. Do you want me to be up, or do you want me to be down? Or do you want to say something? Is there something you want to get across? And that kind of utility of music, of being able to express or connect, is the thing that I'm most interested in. Making music for the background for people to just chill to, AIs can do that. It's not difficult. It's not difficult to just come up with a steady beat that's at this tempo. You could analyze pop songs and, all right, so 112 BPMs, most common thing. C major is most common key. This is the most common chord progression. So we'll go 1, 5, 6, 4 a bunch of times, and we'll have this laid back cross stick pattern on this drum sample. Like, you could just generate music and it would be convincing background music, but you would feel nothing.
Right.
That's the point. And what I do with music is I try to use it to get out of these holes. And so I don't tell them they need to make sad music or anything like my stuff. I don't want them to. But what I want them to know is that this is a companion that will be with them for the rest of their lives if they need it, and they could write something. And the notion, and this, maybe some of them probably don't like me for this, I don't get into a lot of like, well, here's how you want to promote it, and here's how you do this, that, and the other thing. Like, I'm gonna have to bring John in to just say, all right, you tell him how to get it out there. But writing the song is the whole thing. getting it all out and making it and saying what you need to say.
Mhm.
And, you know, how does it make what I've said any more or less true if 10 people listen to it versus 10,000?
Mhm.
If my song said what I had to say, if it helped me get through this moment, does it matter if it gets 1 million streams or 2? It to me, it doesn't, because this isn't a commodity. What you go through is not a commodity. What I go through is not a commodity. It's the humanity of it. And
Yeah.
so, you know, there are a lot of people that write music that is that kind of is a commodity. And I'm not disrespecting that, by the way. That's not a bad thing. There's plenty of music I like that's just straight up fun. It has no deeper meaning. This is just
Right.
fun stuff.
Right.
man.
Right.
You know, there's nothing wrong with it. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. That's the great thing about music, is that it has multiple utilities.
Mhm.
But for me, when it comes to, like, if I say music saves lives, that's why. It wasn't the fact that I heard a beat and a chord progression and a melody. It's because I heard someone experiencing suffering that I've never met, that I don't know, but they're making a sound that my heart made.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that makes me feel like I'm not alone. As I sing along with it, or as I just listen to it, or as I let it bring the tears out and all this kind of stuff, it is something that is kind of drawing out some of the poison.
Hmm.
And, you know, for a lot of the people that are, you know, just cheer up, or hear, like your buddy who's like, I'll tell you what he needs to do. He needs
Exactly.
to, it's the melatonin.
He needs to
and-
not wear black shirts all the time.
Yeah, if he changes clothes, he wouldn't listen to all that black metal and all that stuff. Like, you know, he's surrounding himself with darkness, so that makes it. And it's sort of, well, but see, like, my heart is lighter after I hear the most awful things.
Interesting.
You know, I'll listen to some just extremely somber music, and as I'm hearing it, I'm feeling that sadness. It's not making me happy. But the burden is lighter when it's over, and that's what people don't understand.
Yeah, there's a huge catharsis to it. You're releasing something, and
Yeah.
you're doing it through them. And again, that's what you're doing for your audience, whether it's current or eventual. And something that I wanted to bring up, I talked about this about a year ago, but I want to bring it up again because I think it definitely applies to you. And that is, there's a movie on Netflix. I don't know if you're a movie person at all.
Yeah, if it's horror movies, especially.
Well, of course, man, you're dark,
Yes, I know. Cliche.
man. Have you seen The Old Guard with Charlize Theron?
I don't think so.
It's okay if you haven't. Okay. So, brief synopsis. Here's a woman and a few of her friends who seem to be immortal. Okay? And they're sort of fighting through time, right? They're battling through time. And so we meet up with them currently, you know, in 2020 or 2021, whatever the movie was made.
Right.
And you discover through the course of the movie, spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it, that they've been around for about 5,000, 6,000 years. They weren't here from the beginning, whatever that means, but, you know, they eventually were born, and then they discovered they couldn't die.
Okay.
And what's interesting about the movie isn't that sort of basic filmmaker's treatment. It is fun though, albeit a little gory, but that's cool if you like that stuff. Yeah.
You're selling me on it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there's throat slashings and everything, man. You're gonna love it. But what it is about the idea of the echo of eternity, right? It's about the idea that they saved the life of a young woman in 1532 that echoed to 2020. That the reason they saved that life was so the 2020 thing could happen, and that they didn't choose it, but that this divine overseer, right? God, nature, said, we want this to happen, and you're the tool, you're the instrument. And I think of you, and I think you're a perfect example of a guy with massive talent who doesn't necessarily know why he's here, and many times would like not to be. And yet he creates and fights through and does something truly lovely, doesn't promote it, lets it grow organically, finds the right PR guy in John Asher. That's who we're talking about, by the way, folks. John Asher, Asher Media. But over time, Chris, your material will, even if it never happens in your lifetime, because it'll exist forever. I mean, at least as much forever as the internet may or may not be, right? You know what I mean? But I like the idea that, I mean, come on, dude, think about it. Your great-great-grandparents, you may or may not have ever seen a photo of them, but you've certainly never heard a recording of them.
Mm-hmm.
And someday, somebody in your family, you know, in your bloodline, or somebody who was the student of a student of a son of a son of a son of a son,
Mm-hmm.
said, that's Mr. Hef. And that music will resonate in a way it never resonates now because it was made for then. And I like that idea that my great-great-grandchildren will hear my voice, will hear your voice, will hear this conversation, because you know what? They're gonna. My great-great-grandchildren someday are going to pull this up and go, oh my God, Grandpa was talking about me without ever meeting me. So they could discover this time capsule. That's badass. And you and I get to be a part of that. And so for me, the life and death struggle, the suicidal stuff, the morbidity, the frustrations that we all experience, that's worth fighting for, because that's my legacy. That's your legacy. I may never meet it, but I love the idea of knowing that someday somebody will.
Yeah, it's certainly a romantic notion. You know, it's hard to fathom those kinds of things. I mean, you know, but that's very true. And you know, and we don't know who we affect. I mean, there are times when someone has done some nice thing for me, some stranger, and it has changed my outlook on the day. Mm-hmm. And you know, that ripples in a pond thing can really be seen day to day. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the reasons I miss my father so much is he was the most generous person that I've ever met. I've never met anybody as generous as he was. And his favorite thing was what he called anonymous generosity. Mm-hmm. And he would make a challenge to people of like, go, you know, through like November or something. He's like, go, you know, give to a charity or go volunteer somewhere or go do something for someone, help a friend, this other thing. And don't tell anyone you did it.
Yeah.
They can never know. Yeah. The best kind is if you could do it for them and they don't even know that you did it. Yeah. So, you know, the reason he felt that way is because the act of good was in and of itself.
Yes. Everything else is ego.
Most pure. And I've tried to do that stuff, and I try to help people out or volunteer where I can. And he was just so much more wise than me and put together, you know, than I have the capability to be. But, you know, that's how I approach the musical side of things. Is music doesn't cease to be important, moving, or beautiful just because no one's listening to it. It is by its very nature, you know, as you said, if someone finds it 100 years from now and it's one person, they've discovered a treasure. Like, oh my gosh, look at this thing I found. Mm-hmm. And
it'll happen, Chris. It will happen.
Well, I mean, I think it'll happen to many people. I don't know that it's going to happen with my stuff, but it's certainly true. And I think, you know, as we continue to be so focused on commodity aspects of music, and that's one thing I don't like about the music industry is just, you know, like I'm working on these 2 records that are probably mean the most to me out of any of the stuff I've done. Mm-hmm. And I'm not finished, so I haven't started trying, but I'm already not looking forward to trying to shop it around because I kind of, you know, without going into any details or anything, kind of, you know, stepped away from my previous label for many, many years. And kind of thought I'm either going to release the next thing like just by myself, or I want, someone that's going to be able to, help me reach more people, or maybe, affect more people. And I mean, I already don't look forward to it, because I remember the conversations and getting the, stuff back from, I won't say the labels, but just stuff like,
Sure.
And this material is fabulous, but you don't have enough tour history. This material is fabulous. Oh, you don't get enough streams on Spotify. I mean, flat out, it's just sort of like, but in my head, I'm sitting there thinking like, isn't
How
that
are you
what
supposed
you
to
do? Like,
Exactly.
Isn't that your job? Like, if I made this great material that you think is wonderful,
Yeah.
could you, like, what if you
Yeah.
help me? Like, isn't that the only thing you're supposed
Yes,
to be able to do?
they're
If only
hired
had
to be your
advertise-
champion. They're hired to raise you up on a pedestal. That's their job.
Precisely. So if I knew how to advertise this stuff, then what do I need you for?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the same thing in a lot of festival situations. Like I apply for us to be on festivals now and then, and sometimes we hear back from stuff. Most of the time we don't. And, once you talk to some of the people that are like really deep into the industry, a lot of them be like, man, most of the stuff is going to be back scratching stuff of like, this label is, going to put, we'll put this band of yours on this tour, but I need you to put this band of ours on that tour. And we need this band to be on this festival. We need that. Like, there's just a lot of money changing hands. There's a lot of favors. There's a lot of kind of political stuff, that I don't understand, nor do I have an interest in. And so, for my own well-being, like I made peace with that. So that's why I don't shove my music down everybody's throat. If you like it, I'm honored, and I want you to listen to it, but I'm not going to constantly tell you, hey, share it. Hey, this, that, and the other thing. And I'd probably get more shares, or I'd probably be more popular if I did that stuff, but that's not me.
Yeah, it's not true to who you are. I mean,
that's the entire point of the band. The entire point of the Reticent is that I'm giving you this window into my life. I'm telling you about, my friend's suicide. I'm telling you about my great uncle's Alzheimer's. And coming up here, I'm going to tell you about my disorders. I'm going to tell you about my father's death. And, these are diary entries. And if I were to call any of this stuff like, a banger, it would just seem to like invalidate all that stuff. And it's
so
not, I'm
sincere.
I'm not trying to make it super serious. And I try to laugh about it. Like I'll make all kinds of jokes about like how sad my music is, or how despondent I am, or this, like I'll laugh about that stuff. Cause I've made peace with it. Like I'm who I am. I'm being who I am. And it's fine. If you don't like me, that's perfectly fine. We're not all going to get along, but this is who I am. I'm simultaneously Mr. Motivational Speech, and I hate myself. I want to die. Like I'm both of those things.
Yeah, you're perfect. You're perfect to help anybody out. You just don't believe the shit you're slinging.
Well, no, I believe what I'm saying.
I mean that in a nice way. I don't with you a bit.
It's a thing where I don't think, like, if someone were to press me, I would say I don't deserve the kindness I give to others.
But see, this is what upsets me about you as your friend. I understand that. And that's the tragedy of everybody. I should say, it seems to me that's the tragedy of everybody I know who's walking that fine line. That there's this idea that, others deserve the love that you can give, but you don't deserve the love you can give. Or receiving the wisdom you are so readily able to give to others. But that's the human condition, man. I mean, Isn't that what we all have the answers deep down inside? If we have the courage to give those answers away, we should receive those answers ourselves. I know perfectly well that my life is a multiplication of all the issues, of all the things I've passed on in my life out of fear or whatever, thumbing my nose at an opportunity. And then I complain about it down the road. Like, how come this didn't work out for me? Well, it's because I didn't work hard enough, or I didn't take that avenue because for whatever reason it didn't fit, but it fit other people's lives.
Right.
And then again, I'm not teaching you anything you don't know or talking with you about anything you don't know, but I guess the one thing I wanted to, and then let's talk about your new music and your tour. And it looks like our signal is really low again. I'm not really sure why that is. So hopefully we're still online here.
Hopefully.
We're still recording. Are you good? Can you still hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like you cut out every now and then, but
okay,
only for a second. So
God bless the internet. Is this idea that if we repeat things over and over again, we're doomed. And I guess what I'm trying to say is my 3 friends who have taken their lives. I've had 3 friends that I've lost through suicide, through very violent means, not pretty suicides, awful suicides, right? The jump in front of a train suicide and the, blow your head clear off suicide, the ugly stuff. And each one of them talked about it incessantly. And each one of them talked about it so much that human nature is to go, oh, God, Steve, shut up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And because they don't understand, they don't want to understand, they can't offer assistance, whatever the issue is. And I'm begging listeners to not parrot your own negativity as though if maybe I say it one more time, it'll change. Because to me, it seems that what you're doing by saying it over and over again is you're agreeing with it. And I wondered what your take is on that, because I know you go online and you talk a lot about where you're at. And I think that's healthy because you're expunging it, right? You're blasting it out there. But it is hard to watch from a distance.
Well, I've had many people make really, really good points about lots of things to me. For instance, years ago, God almighty, like this is 15, 16 years ago, more actually. There was a girl I was interested in. I'm famously bad at anything to do with romance, relationships, or anything. It'll take me years to admit that I even have like a thing for you or something like that. It's, I'm just the fact that I've had the romantic life I've even had is kind of a miracle considering how reticent I am. He said it.
Yeah. I was waiting for it, buddy.
But I remember this woman said to me, she said, I really like you, but I don't think I can date you. And we had been kind of circling each other for a little while. Like it was even within our friend circle, it was kind of like, are y'all just going to go ahead and like say that what you are? Cause you clearly.
Right.
And so I decided to be brave and make the move. And she said, I'm the type of person where, if I tell you how much I like you, if I tell you how handsome you are, if I tell you, all these great things about you, it will bother me that you won't believe them. And I can't be in that situation where I would offer love or offer affection and for someone to just slap it away and say it's not true. And she said, I think you're the most wonderful person, sweetest person I've ever met and all that stuff, but I don't think you would let me love you. And I think it would make me get angry at you.
Right. I don't want to make a career of convincing you that you're special to me.
And it's a very fair thing. And, in any of the relationships I've had, I've never put the burden on a partner, to like fix me. That's not their responsibility. And I don't want them to, but it is difficult for me to understand how I may see myself. And if I just express that, it's homeostasis for me. It's completely normal. I don't see anything wrong by just saying, oh no, like I'm just this piece of human garbage. It's a miracle no one's taken me out yet. Like for someone who might, conceivably love me one day, to hear that, like I can understand that would be upsetting and that would be frustrating and other things. And, you know, it would make them think, well, you know, so my words mean nothing. So the fact that I love you, that doesn't count.
Mhm.
And that's a really tough place to be. And so I've had a string of just horrible romantic relationships and everything. But I think that I have to accept a lot of responsibility within them because of that fact, because I can't take compliments and I don't know how to be loved and all that kind of stuff like that. Cause again, it's that you don't deserve it thing. And it hasn't always been, you know, like that. Like they weren't all like wonderful people who, you know, told me they loved me and then I didn't listen. So
Right.
a lot of other bad stuff happened. So that's not the only thing, but that's one thing that, you know, was brought to my attention. It is a good point, is a fair point. However, at the same time, it's this, you know, you have this other part of your brain that's sort of the duty bound integrity thing. That's just sort of, well, this is how I feel. This is reality. This is truth. You want me to lie or not? And it becomes this sort of thing of, you know, do you want a beautiful lie or the ugly truth? And I can at the same time appreciate somebody caring for me, you know, maybe loving me or something like that, as crazy as an idea as that might seem. But I can appreciate and want that and all those things while at the same time feeling like I don't deserve it. I'm not, you know, all those things. Both of those things can exist at the same time. And, you know, it becomes a competition between realities where someone you trust or love or whatever is telling you this one thing, but what they're telling you is that the sky is polka dotted and green.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, well, I love this person. I trust this person, but you see that part, that's not true. Like I've seen the sky. I can go look at it right now. That's blue.
Right.
That's how it feels for people like me. And, you know, I put up something on social media once, and I was even making just a joke. And there's this guy, I don't know what his name is. He's he plays in some band or something like that. It's one of those things where I sometimes wonder if some people just you know follow me to, you know, give me crap. But like I had put up some joke, and the guy like put up a GIF of like someone fishing, and it was like, "Oh, you're fishing for compliments," and I'm like, okay, number one, you've never really talked to me, have you?
Right.
Because anybody who like actually would know me would say like, if you tried to compliment me, I'll argue with you till you get mad at me and you say, you know what, fine, you are a piece of shit or whatever. Like,
right.
That's and it's not because like I have to be right. It's just that's kind of how it is. Like, you know, I think folks kind of underestimate like how deep for a lot of people that self-loathing goes. And yet again, it's the sky is blue. It's just a statement of fact. And so to train yourself out of that kind of thing is difficult. And I've read books and, you know, talked to therapists about those kinds of things. I know that's a cognitive distortion, you know, that's a cognitive behavioral therapy kind of thing to get through. And I can recognize that with the logical part of my brain, but it is, you know, if something has become normal to you, it's really hard to unmake normality.
Yeah, it's really easy to believe that self-sabotage is okay because, you know, you don't deserve it.
Yeah. Like it's like if you have a mind like mine, when you tear yourself down, when you beat yourself up, when you sit in the room alone and just say like, you know, God, remember, you know, isn't it a miracle anybody puts up with your crap and all this kind of stuff? You know how many more people would be better off if you just disappeared? Why are you still here? Like you live in that world, you know, all the time, and it just becomes just normal. It's just, that's how it is. You just accept it. And so there's a weird comfort in that, well, this feels normal. So if someone were to say, oh my God, you're handsome or you're talented or you're this or that, it's distorting you because you're like, I don't know, that doesn't make sense. So if I retreat back to that loathing, weird as it sounds, like that feels normal. And it's like this thing you can depend on, you can trust that, well, I know a couple things about reality. I know this.
Right.
And it seems so strange, but it is true.
Have you considered, I'm sure you've, but a friend of mine years ago did the whole yes thing with me. Say, hey, Rob, I challenge you to spend the next month, just saying yes to everything. Somebody asks you to go to this concert, say yes. If somebody asks you to go to this business meeting, say yes. Because yes, you're going to be tired at the end of it, and you're not going to want to do most of it, but you are going to have experiences you would have never had without saying yes. And some of those experiences will change your life in a highly positive way. And I'm curious if you've ever tried that sort of self-therapy, this idea of just accepting everything and saying, not expecting a different result, not trying to say, like, if I just say yes, my life will be better. I'm saying just say yes, because maybe something will, maybe there will be a subtle shift in the chemistry.
Well, I think I know what you're getting at. With the funny thing is, if there's anybody listening to this that knows me personally, as soon as they heard you say, have you ever tried saying yes to everything? They probably immediately said, oh God, don't make him do that. Because my problem is that I already say yes to everything. Like if somebody asks me to be in a band,
Gotcha.
like I'm already joining all these other side projects. I'm like booked out for the year with all sorts of stuff. And so like I constantly will say, like, I just accepted a second job.
Right.
So
I heard.
I'm constantly doing too much. So what I know you mean is like saying yes to, someone saying something positive and just not arguing and that
Right.
kind of, I know that's what you mean.
Right.
But I just thought it was funny because as you were saying that, I was sitting there thinking like, I had a friend. I don't know if she's still my friend or anymore, but my friend Jen, she would like as soon as I would say, if I would post anything about like, well, I'm going to do this, that, the other thing, she might write me and say like, so how many bands are you in now or whatever? And, knowing like I don't have time to sleep, I don't have time to do anything or whatever. But, it's, so that's what that is. But I haven't tried trying to agree with people just because the sheer cognitive dissonance, would be a lot. But I have done this. I have tried to learn to just say thank you, or to say, hey, I hope you're doing okay, or this or the other thing. And so like once I lost a fan of the Reticent years and years and years ago because they were saying something complimentary, and I was in such a bad place. Like I couldn't take that. And I was like, no, I'm not anything. Like, please don't say that. I mean, and I wasn't being like ugly, but it was just this like, please don't say that about me. And eventually they got kind of like mad at me because, in their eyes, I was like rejecting their praise or something like that. And it became a big, like, I don't like your band anymore. And I'm sure it looked, terrible. And I felt really bad about it. And I wanted to, apologize and tried. But it's the thing. It's like it had nothing to do with them. It had to do with me. Yeah. And that's why like my booking agency has to run my socials, like because if you let me have it, and you can tell when I take control because I'll write these long letters of like here just brutal honesty and all this kind of stuff, and then you'll see something else that's like, hey guys, are you excited for whatever? And they'll be like, okay, that's probably not him. Yeah. But it's but I've learned that like, it's not fair for me to invalidate somebody else's feelings. And so I do get that much. And I try to just say thank you. I try to make myself not argue. I don't always do that, especially like if it's like late at night and I'm in some funk, if I'm just, cause I don't have anybody to talk to. So I'm just sitting in bed and I'll just start typing to the internet, and someone will respond and I might just write back and all that stuff. And, but, it's that is something I had to learn to do, is to not that, you know, to be able to at least accept people are saying reality as they see it. And I'm allowed to disagree, but it's not right for me to argue with them. It's not right for me to be argumentative. And so it's I think a lot of my friends that have tried to like make me feel better about things. At some point they've seen me say, let's agree to disagree. Like
Right.
I will pull that chestnut out eventually when it's I can't believe what you're saying. We're not gonna make any more progress on this. And I don't want to make you mad. So let's move to something else. That's usually my way of trying to move on. And it's, you know, it's happened many times. Like if people start complimenting me, I oftentimes, like, my body language gets real, I move a lot. I start looking at the ground, like, cause I don't know what to do.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, you know, I do want to talk about the tour coming up here. I mean, obviously, you know, you're working on these 2 new records, which are, you know, a massive explosion of pain and suffering and dissonance, all written out. And knowing what you did with your last record, I know this is going to be a tough listen. And yet at the same time, cathartic for those who know what you've walked through, let alone yourself. I did turn a friend of mine on to you, lives in the Charlotte area. He's going to come to your show.
Oh, nice.
And loves it. So his name is Tim Pugh. So when he checks in with you, make sure you know, give him a hug. Cause he too suffers from some pretty serious, mental strife would be a nice way to put it. And having a pal, somebody that he can look up to and admire, who writes really, you know, introspective and violently dangerous, beautiful music, would be perfect for him. So thank you for doing that.
I'd love to talk to him.
Yeah, yeah. So all that being said, before I ask about the tour, I do want to put one thing out there for you as a friend, and I actually want to make this a request. Okay. So when I read your social media stuff, I am constantly awed by the fact that you're a man who knows how to cash in on the 50-cent words. That's all I got to say about that. You use myriad and flummoxed, and you know what I mean? You're going for it all the time, you know, ubiquitous, you know what I mean? You got the
I'm
14-letter words, you know what I mean?
Person, yeah.
Yes. I would love for you to write a poem a day for 365 days. Mm-hmm. A poem, whether it's 5 lines, you know, or you know, 50 paragraphs. I would buy that book because your thoughtfulness, the way you pursue your dreams and your agony through that, the complexity of your writing, it's really extraordinary, Chris. And I don't have to blow smoke. I'm a decent writer. I certainly understand grammar rules 101. You know, I'm good. I'm good with the above average stuff. But then there's your level. And you really, I mean, if nobody's ever really said it to you, you need to hear this. I mean, you're missing another component. And if you did that, that would be a thing that would echo forever. Having a reference point of, you know, a man walking that tightrope for a year, and every day, every up, every down, every moment of hope, every moment of, you know, dissonance and failure and hopelessness, would give the reader a chance to experience your pain and to realize it. And what a gift that would give us. And I really mean this. I mean, yes, you're, you know, I mean, I know I'm going to make you uncomfortable. I talk about the Grammy stuff, but, you know, for those who don't know, Chris is a Grammy nominated educator. That is completely badass. That's something very few people ever get to do. And it's because that big brain of yours is overthinking everything. But if I could throw my ism at you, this is something I've been thinking of for a long time, but I do want to say it to you because I really believe in this. You can overthink everything, but you can never love enough. Your heart can never be full enough. Your brain can be overfull at all turns, but your heart can never, ever be full enough. But if we turn our minds towards our brains constantly, we never give our heart opportunity, man, we're missing so much. And so, you know, I would just love for your creative juices to spill out in, I know I'm asking a lot here, but spilling out one more pathway. And just give us everything you got, because we may not have you forever.
Yeah.
And I want everything I can get from my friend, because I deeply treasure you and I do love you. I mean, as much as a friend can love another friend, especially one who's actually never met in person.
Indeed.
But you are tremendous. And I'm so grateful you're in my life. And
well, likewise, man.
yeah, you're just the real thing, man. It pisses me off that you're so real and I can't hang out with you and just come over to the house sometimes and like slap you around, and then you slap me around, and then we both laugh, and then we hug, and then we go have a beer or something. Yeah. Okay, I'll shut up now, but that's what I want you to do. Consider it, please.
I'll consider it. I'll try.
365 days, man. One paragraph, one sentence, one word. Just something. Put a book together. I'd buy it in a heartbeat, and so would a lot of other people. And it'd be on every coffee table in a counselor's office in the world.
Yeah.
55 days of depression.
Yeah. If you identify with this book, you need to seek help immediately.
Yes. It's like the haircut book, at the salon. Yeah. I want my hair to look like that.
Yeah. I think someone I really love and admire was Henry Rollins, and I mean that's what he did in the 80s all the way through into the 90s, 2000s. Was he wrote a lot of those books that were just journal entries, poetry, stuff like that just kind of came to his mind.
Yeah.
And I used to love like Black Coffee Blues and stuff like that. Just these, sometimes they're about relationships, sometimes they're about the world, sometimes they're about anything, but it was kind of stream of consciousness. But I remember just loving those books because it was a window into someone's mind. It wasn't this, thought out, edited story. It was just a window into another human being being a human being. And I mean, I will accept your challenge. I cannot fathom a world where people want to read 365 days of my thoughts.
They do, though.
But I will do it because, as I said, I can't say no to work. So
I'll pay you.
Okay, there you go.
You do it. I'll pay you. I don't know how I'll pay you, but I'll pay you.
There it is.
Okay, so tell me about the tour coming up. Tell us, tell the listeners about the tour. Let's end on a good note. Let's end on a happy, joyful. Hey, we're going to see the Reticent after all this time.
So the tour is the Forget Me Not tour, and it's from April 1st through 9th. We're also going to try to do some days in the summer. We already got a show booked in July, so we're going to do some other things. So we might just kind of say anything. If you see us this year, it's all part of this Forget Me Not thing, but it's a kind of belated celebration of Oubliette. And we're going to be going. We're in Chattanooga, Tennessee, we're in Louisville, Kentucky, we're in St. Louis, Missouri, we're in Chicago, Illinois, we're in Detroit, Michigan, we're in Columbus, Ohio, we're in Morgantown, West Virginia, then we're in Greensboro, North Carolina, and Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay. And you can find the tour poster and everything at the website, or you just look up the Reticent or go to thereticent.net or anything like that. Although the venue had to get changed in our Chattanooga thing, that's a whole miserable story. I'm not going to go through all that.
Another miserable story.
Well, it's me. Didn't think I'd come here with good news. And we're gonna, since we're headlining and we're playing, there are lots of local bands from all these areas that we're really psyched to play with, and we're very excited to get out to see new people and all that stuff. So I hope people will come. If you've never been to a Reticent show before, it's different. I don't really talk to the audience. We don't. It's very much like performance art, and all four of us hurt in front of you, and we kind of invite you to sort of like live through us, or go with us on the journey. If you've ever lost someone to Alzheimer's disease, the show can be a lot. We have visual media that will, we have a warning at the beginning of our show for a reason, and it can be a lot for people to take, and it's a lot for me. So it's like, for instance, our last show we played the show just a couple months back, and at the end of the show, I was on the ground, like in the crowd, and it was just a long time, and then like a bunch of them like helped me get up and all this kind of stuff, but it took a lot out of me to kind of go to the places we go. And once again, it's one of these things where these are all experiences that I've gone through, and I'll take you with me.
Yeah.
And so we'll be doing selections from the oubliette. We'll be doing depending on the show. Since we're headlining most places, we should be able to play like an hour or something like that. So we'll do some cuts off of On the Eve of Goodbye, and we'll maybe throw in maybe a cover or something like that just for fun. And we're gonna premiere a new song called Those Who Don't Wish to Wake. Nickname of it is the Concealment, and it's actually about what I have to do at my job, which is you can't be the depressed guy. You can't let people know what's going on. It's like if I wasn't honest on social media, it's no one would know. The way I am, again, like if you hear me talk and you hear me orate, people wouldn't know what was going on in here if I never said it. And that's kind of what that is. And so, but that's that'll be the first song of the new material that will be taken out. So we're going to put it in front of audiences, and we're real excited to play it. I think it's it'll be hopefully well received by the people that like what we do. But like on that token, the two records that I was referencing, that I worked on, the first one is called Please, about all the disorders I have, which is the major depressive disorder, insomnia, panic attacks, stuff like that. But on the record there's a song talking about the people who think you're full of crap and just get over it. And that song's called Those Who Don't Understand. And there's songs about like how you want to give up, and there's a song about suicide from the perspective of the person doing it, which for people that are suicidal, when they think of suicide, it's not morose, it's not grand or anything, it's very peaceful, because you think, oh man, like it's gonna be over, and it's almost like a sigh of relief. And the second record is going to be called Don't Go, and that is about my father, losing my father, and it's just the 5 stages of grief. And
It's got to be good for people, Chris.
Well, I'll tell you, if I have time to tell you.
You do.
I sent so I recorded a song for the record, and all those, everything on that album is just denial, anger, bargaining, that kind of stuff. It's just the stages. Acceptance is broken up into 2 halves, but despair I kept rewriting, and I rewrote constantly for months, and because it wasn't dark enough, it didn't hurt enough. And I eventually, I said to James and to Jamie, I said, I need despair to be like the last word I can have on hurting like that. It needs to be all the loss, because grief has been the thing that's overwhelmed me over the last year. It's just losing my father was something I was not prepared for, and I was closer to him than probably anybody else, and I'm utterly lost without him. And it's very, very difficult to exist in a world that does not have his light. And I decided I was gonna I had come up with the way to do Despair. I'd written the music and all the stuff, and it was fine. And I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to record all the instruments and piano and the drums and all these other things. And then I'm going to record the main vocals on February 3rd, 2023 at 5 a.m. I'm going to record it in his bedroom at his house with pictures of him all around me. And I put myself into this place. Now, my friend Justin thought it was a terrible idea because he thought I was going to go too far.
Right.
He didn't think I would survive it. He thought I would use it as an excuse or as a means to do something.
This is the moment. Yeah.
You know, he begged me not to do it. And I ended up with, two of my best friends. They at 5 a.m. parked outside the house, and there was basically kind of a time where it was like by 6 a.m. if he has not come out, we go in. And I went in there and I hit record, and I'd set up 2 mics. This was one of them actually, and one mic was right in front of me, and the other mic was like in the middle of the room, and I'd switched it to this omnidirectional, so just pick up all the room noise. And I hit record, and did what I did, and by the end of it, I was on the floor, and I had like clawed at my arm and cut it open, and I was screaming like it wasn't like the black metal shriek, it wasn't a death metal growl, like it was just sobbing screams. And it was, if people had ever heard a song I did called Funeral for a Firefly or the title track off the oubliette, like, I'm certainly crying by the end of that song. Yeah. Either of those things. This was sobbing. This was uncontrolled. And what Justin was afraid of was I'd go in there and I wouldn't have a ripcord for a parachute. And he said, when you did Funeral for a Firefly with Jamie was there with you, and you went in a booth and you freaked out, and then you came out, and he talked you into doing it one more time. He said, you don't have that ripcord this time. If you're in there, you're not going to be able to get away from it once it starts to be too much. And I said, that's exactly the point, is I'm going to feel it in all of its ferocity. And the other thing it is, I didn't write any lyrics ahead of time except for this chorus thing. So I hit record and I just started to say whatever. And it was, I had a melody in my head for the beginning that matched this piano thing I wrote. And by the end, I'm just screaming whatever's coming to my head. And then I'm just on the ground, and there's this long feedback at the end. And even that ended, and I was still just on the ground, just crying and all this stuff. And I took a mobile setup with me, so I just kind of reached my hand up and just sort of smacked at the keyboard to try to get it to stop. And I just laid there for a long time. And just a little bit after 6 a.m., I got up and I went outside. My face was all puffed out. I was soaking wet. I had mucus coming from my nose. Eyes were bloodshot. My hair was mangled. And I had cuts on my arm and all this stuff. And so as I emerged, I know I looked like a mess to them. And they didn't say anything at first. And I went in my car to get something and get like a towel and started trying to wipe myself down and just trying to control my breathing. And all Sean said to me, he said, "Hey, can I give you a hug?" And I wasn't able to speak yet, so I just nodded and we hugged. James did the same thing. We just stood there for a long time. And they didn't leave my side for 17 hours after that. Like they were with me for the entire day. And we went out to just try to, we went to go get breakfast once the sun was up and stuff with my mother, and I'm never going to play that for her. She's never going to hear it. But it was I was glad that they were there because they did keep me from I could feel myself kind of spiraling down.
Yeah.
And, Justin was right in that fact that I could have seen myself saying like, this is the grand finale. and didn't do that. And I haven't listened to it to this moment. So this is what, March 7th or something. I have not listened to the track. James has listened to it. Jamie's listened to it. I think another one of my friends listened to it, and Justin listened to it. And it made everybody cry. My friend Justin said, and he's listened to every album I've done. He always gets to hear it before anybody else. Mm-hmm. And he's not in the band. He's not, but he's someone I trust. Like if it affects him emotionally, then it's going to be good. And he said, I think that's the most awful thing I've ever heard.
Wow.
And he said, if you wanted to capture the sound of someone's absolute agony, like you're bleeding in audio form, I think you did that. But he said, I don't ever want to hear it again.
Wow.
And for them, I know they know me. So for them hearing me in that state, that would be very much. And part of the reason I did that other microphone was the only thing I could think of was almost having the audience become a voyeur. And how can I create that sense of like hopeless and helpless despair? You can't do anything. I can't bring my father back. There was nothing I could do when he was, we took him off life support. There was nothing. It's just nothing. I'm just watching. And it's complete helplessness. There is no hope. He's not going to wake up. It's done. He's gone. I just have to wait for his lungs to realize it. And how do you capture that? So by putting that other mic away from me, the idea was that you kind of mix later to that far away mic. And what it becomes is that it's as if I was in the room next to you.
Right. There's this howl off in the distance, sort of.
Yeah, and you're. I'm not in some studio. I'm in a room, but you can't get to me. If you give a crap that I'm going through this, you can't help me. You can't comfort me. You can't say anything. You can't do anything. It's just happening. And that's it. That is the end of it. It is happening. There's nothing we can do. And to me, that's despair. And musically, that was the only thing I could think to do, was to kind of build to that gloomy moment. And I fully expect, and Jamie and James also confirmed, like, this will probably be the thing that people listen to the absolute least. But it's probably, they said they think it's probably one of the most powerful things I've recorded. Because Jamie did not like tear up doing Funeral or any of those other ones, but he said that he wrote me a response to it, and he said, as I'm writing this, like, I've got tears in my eyes. This is one of the most powerful recordings I've ever heard, and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know that makes it good music. It may be a terrible song. It could be, but it is the point of this entire band, the point of this whole thing, the point of the tour, the point of everything. This is to affect people, and this is to have honest, real emotion. And there's a lot of wonderful music out there that covers all sorts of emotions. But when I think about the despair I've been through, and I think about losing the most important person to me, and seeing them die in front of me, and watching them just breathe, but their brain is gone. The romantic nature of despair that a lot of people will try to, wax poetic about in a lot of songs, and there are some genres of music that almost romanticize that kind of stuff. Like it's the beauty and sadness and everything. And I'm not saying there's not beauty in it, but I'm more interested in the visceral, actual experience, not the beauty of this despair, but how it took a part of me out that I will never get back. And so I don't know if it will be a good song. I don't know if people will like it, or if people will hate it, or if I'll get made fun of all over the place. I don't have the courage to listen to it, because I put myself in such a place, and seeing, I surrounded myself with his clothes, and the room smelled like him, and
right.
Pictures are here, and I'm in his bedroom. I'm looking at it's, they've been in that house since 1995 or 4. I mean, so I won't be able to not think of all that if I hear it.
Sure.
And I guess
sure.
I'm not prepared for that yet. And we're not at the mixing phase or anything. That song's completely recorded, so I don't have to. But so that's also going to be on that. And you'll notice that the 2 albums, one's called Please, one's called Don't Go. You can put them together and
Sure.
call it Please Don't Go.
Right.
And see it as a, it could be about someone who takes their own life and people grieve for them. But, for me, it's about one album is me and one album is grieving for my father. So.
Yeah. Well, I will say your story's a tough one. But I'm so glad that you were willing to come here today and share it with me and to share it with the listeners of this show and to touch just anybody, just one, right? So, again, as romantic as the idea about echoing eternity, all of that stuff is, I do like the fact that you've created something so painful. You've had the courage to put something down, to really rip yourself apart over it, and to lay yourself bare to an audience that doesn't know you.
Yeah.
And that is an extraordinary thing. And because of that, Chris, there is hope. There's hope, man.
I mean, the best case scenario, and it's what I hope when we go on tour. I hope there are people that are going to see us that don't even know who we are. And, I'm sure we're not going to have like legions of people come to see us. We're just a nobody prog band. But what I'm hoping is that they'll, hear the sincerity in my voice. They'll see it in my eyes. They'll see it in what we do. They'll hear it in the music. And maybe they can connect with it. And maybe they'll say, man, I know what that feels like. Or they might, come up to me and tell me, how, gosh, I lost my grandmother to Alzheimer's disease, or I've struggled with suicide, or this or the other thing. It's the greatest thing in the world when we've played shows and someone comes and talks to me about how they connect to that stuff. Because that's the idea here. The best case scenario is, I'm going to lay all this pain out and I'm going to go hurt in front of you. But maybe I can take some of it from you and I can feel it for you. And you can kind of hurt through me. And when it's done, maybe you can be just a little lighter, or, at least, there's this stranger out there making some weird music that, understands what you're going through,